All right, we're moving along. Hopefully your mind is getting a little clearer, and in doing so, your feelings are getting more engaged, and therefore your behavior is closer to your spouse. Okay, you know what? I work with couples all day long, and generally the couples that come to me are not doing well. And the things that I've learned is how to go from a bad place to a better place in your marriage. I want to take this segment to talk about how our thoughts shouldn't change. Discovering thinking mistakes that destroy marriages. And they're fairly predictable mistakes. Most couples don't realize them. But when you learn to discover these mistakes, you'll definitely have a better marriage. Now, the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 8, a person is praised for his insights, but a warped mind leads to contempt. And I'll tell you, that's what you see in our offices and otherwise, and quite frankly in the law offices of people getting divorced, is a warped mind that has led to contempt. Now, also Proverbs 23:19 says, listen, my child, and be wise. Keep your mind straight on the path. In other words, we can get off the path. I'm going to talk look at a few of those, how would I describe these, dysfunctional thinking patterns that couples engage in. One of them is what we call irrational thoughts. These are the thoughts that my spouse should always understand my feelings. They should always be there for me, and they should never have a bad day. Those are irrational thoughts. And as long as you build a life on irrational thoughts, it's like building a house on sand. Our goal is to be rational and reasonable, and to realize that we're human beings, we're flawed, we're imperfect. Dysfunctional thinking can often be irrational thoughts. Another way is what we call cognitive distortions. The best way I describe this is if you've ever seen one of those fun houses where you stand in front of that mirror and that mirror distorts you. Maybe it makes you look thinner, maybe it makes you look a little overweight. These are what we call cognitive distortions. One such cognitive distortion is what we call generalizing. In other words, if one area of a situation is reflective of the whole area. So if you have a bad day with your spouse, you say, well, we just have a bad marriage. That's a generalization. That's a cognitive distortion. Another cognitive distortion is what we call minimizing the positive. It's when your spouse actually does something right, but you minimize it. You're going to see a list of these cognitive distortions. I want you to look through them. Circle the ones that you believe best represent you, and then try to do the opposite of them. Try to talk through those things with your partner. So, walk away message here. Just because we think, now listen to this, just because we think it doesn't mean it's true. People, they have to realize that, because sometimes our thoughts about ourselves, about our spouse, about our future, they're not right. We've got to learn to discern. Number two is our marriages are only as healthy as our thinking. And we want to stay away from dysfunctional thinking, from irrational thoughts, and from cognitive distortions. Now, I want you to begin to both identify your cognitive, irrational, maladaptive thinking about your spouse, and then communicate it with your partner. So for example, if you find yourself getting really frustrated, maybe your partner is a little bit distant from you, this is what I want you to do. I want you to identify that thought. That thought could be, I expect my partner to be always available for me. Whenever I think it's important, they need to respond. See, that's an irrational thought. Invite them into your mind. Share that with them. Say, you know, honey, I'm sorry, but I realized that I was expecting you to do something that was quite unreasonable. And please forgive me. But understand how I think. In doing so, you will better educate your partner about understanding who you are. We've made it through 3 weeks already. We have one more left, and I look forward to seeing you next week for our fourth and final week.